Good evening and welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Wildcard Devy show. We are in the heights of the summer holidays, but more importantly, we are just a few days, in fact, when this comes out, one day away from week 0 taking over our Saturday television time. My co-host Phil is here, and you can tell from his face already, he is buzzing. How you doing, mate?
Oh, man, I am so excited. So excited. It's all good this weekend. It's all good this weekend. And all the way through till January, we have college football goodness. Like all the kind of full summer, if you like, spring, summer of depth chart upheaval, transfer portal, NIL, coaching changes, all the stuff we've talked about ad nauseum. We get football now, and I am absolutely buzzing. I had a couple of friends asking me earlier in the week. They were like, "Oh, what's week 0?" And the only way I could describe it is like, imagine a really good starter before the main course is served in week 1. Week 0, obviously, absolutely buzzing to get back into it. What are you thinking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea that this is not just a starter, but a really good starter before your main course. And I think that is especially true for us in the UK with the Dublin Classic, the Aer Lingus Classic, I think they're calling it, because everything has to be sponsored, of course. But the fact that we get a game and we get a ranked matchup in that game for the first time. Whoa, I haven't backed up my stats. For the first time in a long time, possibly ever, we're getting a ranked matchup outside of the US. So that makes this an extra exciting week 0. I'm unfortunately not going to the game myself, and I don't believe you are either, Phil. But maybe next year we will have a look at a Wildcard Devy trip out there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go see Uncle Bill. Bill Belichick, his North Carolina team are there next year, aren't they? Yeah, we didn't quite hit it in time to do this one, but you're right. A ranked matchup. Iowa State heading into the season ranked 22. Kansas State are ranked 17 in the preseason polls. And also the kind of favourites, if you like, for the Big 12. Although, let's be honest, it could be anybody's division. It really is a week-to-week type thing. But it's not the only game. I mean, obviously, it's the big headline game for us, being in Dublin, so being kind of that kind of early evening slate for us. But there's plenty of other games as well. I mean, Kansas and Fresno State, Western Kentucky and Sam Houston State, and then Stanford and Hawaii. And I know you want to kind of mention a couple of people from that one a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, let's talk the big one. Let's talk the Aer Lingus Classic. Like, it's really nice as well that we get a rivalry game. Like this is a kind of well-known rivalry in the Big 12, dubbed Farmageddon. And obviously, heading over to Dublin will give a kind of unique twist and probably definitely a first in their rivalry. I suppose that the big thing about the matchup itself, though, is the 2 QBs, right?
It is, yeah. It is. We've got 2 fringe Devy prospects who really have quite a high upside from a Devy perspective, but also a super low floor. So, lots riding on this season for both Rocco Becht and Avery Johnson. And I think people are going to know Avery Johnson maybe a little bit better than Rocco Becht, someone who is a dual threat quarterback, certainly a weapon with his legs as well as his arm. So he will be on Devy radars probably a bit more than Rocco Becht, but a really exciting matchup for the 2 of them. And I think, do you know what? I can't really believe that we're getting this matchup. So the Big 12 managed to protect certain key rivalry games that couldn't be selected to come to Dublin, but they didn't pick this one, which is, it's not an in-state rivalry, but it sure is the most watched rivalry in the Big 12. I saw a tweet about it today where they, this is the most watched rivalry game within, the Kansas State, that kind of area. So excited to have it and excited to have 2 big name quarterbacks coming over. It's not just one big team and a lesser known roster trying to pull the upset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's look at those QBs in a little bit more detail. You already mentioned Avery Johnson, and you're right. Both of these guys are names that are kind of fringe Devy names, but kind of more prevalent to anybody who plays C2C or college fantasy football. Avery Johnson, like you say, true dual threat. Averaged 57 yards per game on the ground last year. Really, really effective on design runs and extending plays outside the pocket. He creates yards in chunk plays, both on the ground and in the air. NFL prospects, I think the big thing is his passing mechanics are very inconsistent, I think is the nicest way of putting it. And he goes into the season, if you're looking at like what players can do from the Devy perspective to kind of improve their Devy outlook or draft outlook next year, he needs to kind of polish that intermediate kind of accuracy. If he can lock in and kind of make that a focus for this year, he could be a guy who kind of jumps up draft boards, and all of a sudden, if you've taken a flyer on him in a deeper Devy league, or you've seen the name, you've seen the rushing stats and thought, yeah, I'll have a punt. That's where his value is going to come, if he can just show those consistency in his passing, which is ironic, really, because that's kind of what his counterpart, Rocco Becht, is known for. A timing-based passer who operates really well within structure. It's all up there for Rocco Becht. He's smart. He's a kind of cerebral, with his pre-snap reads, and he has got the consistent ball placement that Avery Johnson's perhaps lacking. But then equally, he doesn't have Johnson's rushing threat. So it really is a case of styles make fights, and these two guys offer something completely different in how they're going to approach the game on Saturday.
Yeah, they do. And we've seen, Rocco Becht was throwing the ball to a couple of now NFL day 2 receivers. So, we've got Jaden Higgins and Noel both going to Houston. I'm forgetting Noel's first name, but we'll move on. Jalen Noel. And it'll be really interesting to see. He's obviously elevated their game, and he had 2 good receivers there, but that means his wide receiver core is kind of new. The guys he's going to be targeting, I think his main target, Carson Hansen, Chase Sowell is a transfer. So there's new chemistry to build there. And then Carson Hansen, the running back, who is also transferred in, someone who we expect to be pretty good this year. Iowa State are a very balanced offense. So Rocco Becht has the security that he has that safety blanket of his running back. He has a balanced offense. He's not being asked to throw the ball, play hero ball too much. I'm really interested to see how these two stars come up against each other, because like you say, Avery Johnson, you talk about his inconsistency in throwing. I just see everything is a little bit rushed for him when he's passing. And he when he gets himself set, he's looking to run a little bit too much for me. And therefore, when he's getting set to pass, it's almost like that's in the back of his mind that he's got to think about, how do I escape? And so, yeah, 2 completely different offenses, 2 completely different quarterbacks, but some pretty good surrounding cast members around them that will be of interest. So some names to watch on the Kansas State side. You want to have a look at Dylan Edwards, who's obviously taken on the main running back duties, which has proved prevalent for Devy purposes. Kansas State's number 1 running back is a good volume running back room. And then you've got Jace Brown as well as Lincoln Cure, 2 fairly new faces, but guys who seem to have the talent to step in. Whether they have the opportunity this early in their careers, we'll see.
Yeah, I suppose the real wild card, of course, is Lincoln Cure, the 5-star freshman tight end. Now, we are known for our take on tight ends in Devy, and we've spoken at length about late breakouts and guys not, maybe making it into the NFL on one good season that doesn't come until their junior or senior year. But this kid was a number 30 overall prospect in the recruiting cycle. True freshman, 5-star. He put up over 2,000 receiving yards in high school and averaged over 20 yards per reception, which is outstanding. Like, whilst tight ends develop slowly, Lincoln Cure is a name I have seen go in the mid to late rounds of lots of drafts this year. Because we know there isn't a lot of bona fide depth in Devy at the position, people are eager to try and grab elite recruits with that kind of that profile, that athletic and that pass catching profile. So Cure certainly fits the bill for that. I suppose, when we're looking at this weekend, who knows? Look, it could be way too early. It could be way too early to see any type of production from him whatsoever. He may be a name for further down the line. Like we said, the kind of breakout and the development curve for tight ends at the college level tends to be fairly slow. And ultimately, he's going to have a high school frame, and he is going to need time to develop into a college tight end's body. If he can't block well in year one, he's probably not going to see the field an awful lot, no matter what he's like in the passing game. However, if he shows himself to be proficient over the course of the year, you might see that he's the guy in a couple of games. I wouldn't look at kind of Brock Bowers numbers for him for year one, or even but if he can contribute and stay relevant, not like some of the other kind of big names or high profile recruited tight ends in recent years who've found themselves so far down depth charts that all of a sudden they're as out of favor as quickly as they came into favor. He's in a situation where he has the potential to be a name that stays on our radars, definitely.
Yeah, and he's produced at the high school level. Like his receiving numbers are ridiculous. I think I read in your very brilliant article that he averaged over 20 yards per reception. So he's not just a short dump it off option. He's someone who can be a primary deep threat, primary option for a quarterback. So we might start to see if he's not showing us the bulk and the blocking ability straight away, we might see some slot packages for him because his route running might be good enough. So certainly want to keep an eye on. I think most people's Devy drafts are probably done by this point in the season. So if you haven't taken a flyer on Lincoln Cure, then you have listened to us well, and you are clearly on team no tight ends. But he's certainly a name to monitor ahead of next season, because either he'll break out hugely now, or hopefully he'll start to show us some promising signs, in which case you can get him for a bit cheaper in next year's Devy draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look at us, right? We're that eager to talk about football that's coming this weekend. We abandoned the show sheet entirely and completely flipped the way we were going to do this on its head after about 2 minutes. Let's do our kind of more general kind of college news roundup, Jack, and talk about some of the things that have been going on in this such exciting kind of week as we build up to week 0.
Yeah, and then we can introduce what we're actually doing this evening. We've teased you with like an introduction before the title credits come in, with that preview of Farmageddon. And as we talk about TV shows, one of the things that has been booming over the last couple of weeks is the Any Given Saturday Netflix show that has done a deep dive. Is probably not quite the right word for those of us who are Devy heads and in the deep depths of college football, but certainly gave a really good representation and explanation of what the SEC is like. Now, I have to disagree with the opening line that all the best players and all the best coaches play in the SEC, but of course I have to say that. What did you think of the TV show? And if you haven't watched it, would you recommend it?
So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the biggest thing for me is as a bona fide kind of Devy head, Devy junkie, we're already aware of the players. We remember the kind of storylines that the games visited as they were happening last year. I remember us getting beat by Vanderbilt. I didn't particularly enjoy reliving it. What was quite cool though is the kind of peek behind the curtain and the glimpse into what it's like for these college athletes. That for me, that was the really interesting part. I wasn't going to learn a great deal about the setup and the way the SEC works. As a Bama fan, I'm quite entrenched in that anyway. But what has been really, really cool is I've had people reach out to me who I've played Dynasty with, or I'm in other kind of football groups with, people from the UK Ravens community saying, I've given this a watch and now I'm interested in Devy. Like, tell me more. And the unfortunate thing has been saying to a couple of them, you're kind of there a little bit late because the season starts next week, but stay in touch, keep watching our podcast. And I've kind of pumped them in the right direction of things. You know, I've had a guy come to me and say he's chosen South Carolina as his team because of how well Lenora Sellers and Shane Beamer came across on the show, which is definitely true. It's just been really good. I've had another guy message me today asking where he can buy college merchandise from. So it's definitely, for fans in the UK, it has given them a way in and a hook, which I suppose was its biggest purpose in signing the deal with Netflix.
I think so, especially for the UK and the European market. It's a way in. Like, even my dad has watched the entire series within 3 days because we were on holiday and he couldn't go in the pool. So he got into it just because I mentioned it, and that's been really cool. It's a really good way for people to get into college football or just to learn a little bit more about it. So if you're an NFL fan and you've not watched much college football, you're probably not. We probably don't have many of those listeners or watchers, but it's definitely worth recommending to your friends who aren't quite into college football. I did think it was interesting. There was clearly a threshold of who had to be involved and who didn't, which is often the case with these kind of TV documentaries, especially in their first year, as we didn't really get an insight into anything from Alabama or Texas or Georgia. So, we'll see what happens in the future. I hope there'll be another series or at least another angle looking at maybe a different conference. But it was a great teaser. There's loads more they could do. But I would definitely recommend it.
I think just very quickly, the one of the biggest takeaways for me was a newfound respect for a guy who you routinely battered on this show last year. And that's old man Graham Mertz. I thought he just came across as an outstanding kind of leader and person who, when he was injured, could have just quit on Florida completely, but was a massive part of their turnaround towards the back end of the year.
Yeah, fair play. And I think that underlines the difference between what we're talking about in terms of Devy prospects and ability in the league and them being a good person. Like, at no point have we said that Graham Mertz is not a nice guy, or have we not rooted for him. He just hasn't seemed to have the ability to get there. Peyton Thorne, on the other hand, didn't come across that well. And he's where I was happy to see Graham Mertz get drafted and see what he can bring to the NFL, probably from a leadership perspective. I don't think that is the route that Peyton Thorne is going to get.
Absolutely.
I definitely slandered him more.
Yeah. So let's stay in the SEC. Let's stay in the SEC because we're now a week or so away from week one. So we've already introduced week 0. Week 1, everybody takes the field. Like, we get a full slate of games. But there's some injury news. As ever, this close to the season, guys have been deep into fall camp and scrimmages. And from an Alabama perspective, staying in the SEC, Jam Miller, the guy who was expected to top the Alabama depth chart, has a shoulder injury, which is going to keep him out at least through week 1. So he's going to miss that game. But moving forward, this was a guy who... It's really funny, isn't it, with Bama? I've said for a long time, sometimes we helmet scout, we get these high recruits in. Everyone kind of drafts the next Bama back because of that kind of chain of backs that they put into the league. But it's been a minute since they've had someone translate that has been truly dominant. Josh Jacobs, you could argue, is the last one. And obviously Derrick Henry is still very much on the go. But Najee never really hit the heights we expected, despite a very fruitful collegiate career. Jam Miller was one I said maybe steer away from. But recently, over the course of the summer, it's clearly his room now after Justice Haynes transferred out. And people have started to take notice of his skill set and discussing him similar to another Alabama running back who's very much in the news at the moment, and saying he can be a Brian Robinson type back for your fantasy team in terms of skill set and the way he plays and the kind of reliability, rushing the ball on first and second down. But I just wonder, like, for all the talk and the kind of rise in his name, perhaps over summer, how this injury sets him back, Jack.
Jam Miller is a guy who you talk about riding a roller coaster for a Devy prospect. He really has had his ups and downs because of injuries and because of competition in the backfield. But even last season, he clearly had the opportunity to take a stranglehold of that running back room, and he just didn't. Now, with Haynes transferring out, it seemed like actually he has kind of taken that by the horns and earned the starting running back spot in front of some questionable backups. Do you know what I mean? Like he seemed like head and shoulders the front runner. So this injury absolutely sucks, but it totally depends on how long he's out for. At the moment, we've been told he's definitely out for week 1, but the range of outcomes for this injury could be that he's back healthy in week 2, or he could be kind of like 80% healthy, so he'll be on a limited snap count but be back ready to go by week 4, maybe at full tilt. But there's some reports that he could be out for week 6, week 7. Like it really depends on how his body responds to the physiotherapy that he'll be doing and the strength and conditioning that is going on. So it's really disappointing, but it's not impacting anything Devy wise for me right now. I think his name isn't high enough that his stock has risen for me enough to sell him. Yeah. And it's definitely not high enough and it's definitely not low enough that I'm going to go and buy him. So he's a absolute hold from a Devy perspective. And I just really hope for his sake that he is fit and raring to go really soon.
Yes. I mean, interestingly, I think I did a quick kind of rostership look today in my Devy leagues to see who had him where, and he's actually only picked up in about 50% of leagues. He's a guy who was either helmet scouted on the chance of getting an opportunity, or he's just not had enough buzz and has been left alone. In those leagues, I think that's where it hurts him the most. You're right. If he's picked up, he's definitely a hold. I don't see the point in going out to buy him yet. He's not shown us enough to risk even a buy low for me, if I'm completely honest right now. And like I said, are you going out and buying low on, again, if you think about the comp I just made, a Brian Robinson? Like, you weren't buying Brian Robinson off somebody as a Devy asset. In most cases, similarly to how I'm seeing Jam Miller, like if he makes it onto an NFL team next year, he will be a nice pickup in the second round of your supplemental draft, your Devy depleted rookie draft. But that injury now, the longer that injury lingers, hurts his prospects of being drafted in those ranges as well. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a tough one for him. Obviously, there will be people clamoring now to see Richard Young and Daniel Hill and how they share the carries. There's obviously Ackland Deer as well, the true freshman, who I don't think will get a sniff. I think it will be very much between Daniel Hill and Richard Young. And I'm sneakily bullish on Daniel Hill of the two. I think he's the one who he was lesser recruited than Richard Young. We knew Richard Young, but he just doesn't seem to have made the most of his touches in the opportunities he's been given. Whereas Daniel Hill's name is one that routinely pops up on the training reports and through the beat reporters. So yeah, just keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, definitely do, because Alabama are going to be better this season as well. They're going to be able to run the ball a bit better. And that just boosts that opportunity, and that whoever can take those touches and make the most of them is obviously going to earn more trust from the coaching staff, and it stops being a timeshare and suddenly someone can take hold of it. So we'll see. But really, we're hoping that Jan Miller is not out for too long, and that all three of them get their opportunity.
That's it. Let's keep it on the negative, and then we'll bounce back with the positives in just a moment, because there's been one other kind of real sickener on the season for Texas Tech. Transfer running back Quinton Joyner has gone down with an ACL and is going to be out for the season. Now that is a massive blow to a name who was rising massively in all kind of collegiate variations of fantasy football, whether it was CFF. He was expected to have a big time year on a CFF and C2C kind of outlook, but then he was starting to generate some really kind of significant Devy buzz as well. I know a lot of people and kind of names I respect had him amongst the kind of top 3 or 4 running backs in this class. So this one really is a stinger. Again, tell us a little bit more about Quinton Joyner, Jack.
Yeah, Quinton Joyner is arguably the best receiving back in college football. Obviously not right now, but someone who we were really excited about. Has excellent hands and really good route running on tape. He obviously transferred in from USC, where he was kind of lost in the myriad of the post Caleb Williams era. What was going on with that offense? I'm not really sure what was going on with that offensive line. Well, they were porous, to be honest, and that didn't give Joyner many chances running the ball or receiving, to be honest. And so going to Texas Tech with the schedule that they've got this year, it was a really exciting opportunity with the roster they've got this year. So it is really devastating. He is such a fleet-footed, quick change of direction running back, someone who you can project to the NFL really easily with his skill set. So he just needs a bit of production to go with it. And, he's ruptured his ACL, and that is devastating because he's going to miss this season, but also because that is a long recovery. And what's he going to lose because of this injury? Your ACL, medical science is getting better and better year on year. People are recovering from injuries that, we've not seen players recover from in quite the same way ever before. But it is a brutal injury to get as a fast, twitchy, good change of pace running back. It is devastating. So absolutely gutted for him. Really big shame for anyone that's bought in, because I've got no idea what he's going to look like. He's obviously going to have to come back to college next year, which I'm pretty certain he has the eligibility to do so.
Just as we were talking, I've just started looking that up. I'm fairly certain he is a junior this season. So let's just double check.
Well, he'll be able to medically redshirt this year anyway, so he will be able to come back next year. It's just whether he comes back whether he's ready for the start of the season. This is ridiculous. We're talking about getting ready for the start of the 2026 college season. That feels insane, but he may well not be ready in 12 months' time. You just don't know.
Yeah. So again, it is a massive, the same way we spoke about the Evan Stewart injury. Like when we talk about these things, we're not victory lapping, we're not trying to generate clicks or publicity out of talking about these guys' health. But, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help guide you on the correct decision to make if you own them as a fantasy football athlete. We're always pulling for the guys as people. Of course we are. So yeah, that is that does suck. On the kind of lighter side of things, though, we've got some QB announcements. The first one I'll let you take, because I don't think this was really a surprise. Julian Sayin has been confirmed as the starting quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Obviously, big high-profile recruit, sat a year last year, and got the opportunity to learn on a national championship winning team. He takes the reins now with a wide receiver room that should keep him fairly safe. But this one interests me because, you know, when you look at the reports coming out of camp, there's been rumors of inconsistency and some highs and lows, which I suppose, you know, we should expect. And going against a higher states defense every day in practice is probably better than a lot of the defenses he'll face this year when he takes the field on Saturday. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about what you think of the Julian Sain situation.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting because I actually thought that Julian Sain would separate from Lincoln Kineholes a little bit earlier than he has done, but you never know what the kind of internal politics and trying to avoid players entering the transfer portal will do to a quarterback battle in particular. Obviously, Ryan Day doesn't want to lose Lincoln Kineholes for this season. Ohio State need him. So maybe Julian Sain did kind of secure this job earlier in the offseason than he did, but you know, we won't know. The money told us that Julian Sain was probably going to be the quarterback to lead the Buckeyes. If we're really honest, even without the camp reports and seeing some highlight clips from training camp and the spring game, I think you follow the money and you follow the NIL deal. Lincoln Kineholes is a good quarterback. He's not as highly thought of in the wider college realms as Julian Sain. So the things to look for with Julian Sain, though, are his release. He has a lightning quick release. When he is set, that ball can be gone in the blink of an eye. That is a dream for an offensive coordinator because you don't need quite so long to get your wide receivers open. Your offensive line don't need to protect your quarterback for quite as long as someone who has a big wind up. And we talk about mechanics. This is one of those mechanics, those throwing mechanics, that is something we really like to see from a quarterback, someone who can get the ball out of their hands really quickly. So when they've made a decision, that ball's gone. And I think we're going to see quite a lot of that to the benefit of Carnell Tate this season. I think Carnell Tate is obviously going to benefit from the fact that Jeremiah Smith is probably going to take double coverage quite a lot. Carnell Tate's going to be used all over the field. And I think you think of what Emeka Egbuka has done over the last few years at Ohio State, lots of across the middle routes. So not just dump offs, not just slants and crossing routes, but some more complicated, you know, dig routes across the middle or rub routes to the boundary. I think we're going to see quite a lot. That's going to be Julian Sain's safety blanket, or his his go-to. He's going to feel very comfortable throwing the ball into those intermediate areas, and he's going to be comfortable getting them out quickly. So none of that is really that Devy relevant, but the quick mechanics is and that is good. And I think we're not surprised that he's been named the starter. I think, you know, we'll get on to his week one matchup, but it's a real test. He's going in at the deep end playing against Texas. And I think we'll learn quite a lot from that game. The good thing for Julian Sain is, like you say, his surrounding cast is fantastic. Great wide receiver room, an offensive line that is healthier than last season and has some really good reports coming out of spring practice and preseason, and a couple of running backs that are quite reliable, and an offensive coordinator who, despite being Brian Hartline, the wide receiver coach, is quite focused on running the ball a bit more in 2025.
Yeah, sure. The last one then, the last one that we really want to mention in this section, and I'll do the name so you don't have to. I've got it here. I've got it blown up in big so I can kind of baby spell my way through it. He's a guy who we have mentioned on this show before, because back in January, Jack, you and I did a pod, had our 2-week break, came back to do another pod, and in that time, this 5-star freshman enrolled at Oregon, went to a week of winter camp, and then transferred out and went to Cal. And we spoke about it being a sign of the times with NIL, with the transfer portal, etc., etc. But Jaron Kiawe Sagapolatelli, I think I did that right, has beaten out Devin Brown to the starter job at Cal. So one might say, I mean, and Jaron, as I'll call him, I'm not going to try and do the full name again, said when he left Oregon, almost immediately after joining, I want to start day one. That was his goal. So his transferring back out was with an eye on putting himself in a situation where he could land a starting gig somewhere. Which, like I said, drew some raised eyebrows. We certainly raised our eyebrows and said, you walking out of Oregon to go to Cal, like, what is this? But he backed himself. He feels he's going to benefit from playing time, and he's beaten out a senior who was brought in there to, in theory, replace Fernando Mendoza and steady the ship for a year. Tell us, because I don't think, honestly, that Jaron has been spoken about enough in Devy circles since that move. Just tell us your thoughts and what he's got to do to put himself on the radar, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I think he's put himself on the radar. He's beaten out a 4-year veteran, obviously one with not loads of starting experience in Devin Brown. And this is a dagger in the heart of any Devin Brown shares that anybody has. So I think Jaron has put himself on the map already. He is a freshman that's going to start at quarterback, and there's not that many of those that we'll see in college football, certainly week one. So, fair play to him. Well done winning this quarterback job. My concerns are that this is going to be a similar situation to how Dante Moore got on when he won the starting job at UCLA, and that didn't go very well for him from a coaching perspective, from a talent perspective, from a staying upright perspective. It'll be really interesting to see how Cal get on, because I don't think either of us are optimistic about their chances this season. So if they're going to have some success, or if Jaron is going to have some success, we're going to have to dig deep to see it, I think, is what I, we're going to have to watch the tape of him rather than looking at how well Cal are playing and
it's
how
going to be one of those where you're really going to have to go beyond the box score with this one, because I do not expect Cal to be very good. Interestingly enough, he's got a reasonable opening game against Oregon State, who I also think are going to have a tough season. So how he plays in that one may well kind of set the tone for what you could expect to see. But yeah, look, Justin Wilcox, the head coach at Cal, came out and kind of told you exactly what the reasons were. He said it was Jaron's accuracy downfield, coachability, ability to learn quickly, whether that's more a backhanded criticism of maybe Devin Brown struggling, I don't know. But yeah, it's certainly his passing is something that stood out when you watch the huddle tape. His ability to throw with both pace and touch stood out. It did. Whether he's got the supporting cast to showcase his strengths at the moment is going to be interesting to see. What he's got to show, I think, first and foremost, is that he can run the offense that he's been asked to run. If he can put up some splash plays in between, keep them competitive in games, that's going to be a big deal this year, I think. And you're right, this is going to be a classic case of watch the tape and don't box score scout, because this kid has put himself in this situation. He backs himself. Also, wouldn't surprise me if he survives. If he does a good job, if he's not someone transferring out to a bigger fish in a year's time. Exactly.
When you watch the tape, you've got to almost ignore what happens when the ball is out of his hands. Do you know what I mean? Like, not every pass he throws where he's thrown it well is going to be caught. Not every time a play is called is he going to have the time to go through his progressions. You've got to look at how is he processing? What protection is he calling at the line of scrimmage? Where is he executing the game plan, and where is he showing us good mechanics and good footwork. That's what we're going to look at for Jaron. And his Devy value is absolutely all over the place because, we talk about helmet scouting. If he'd stayed at Oregon, he'd be gone in most Devy leagues because people like that school and like the ceiling that you can reach under Dan Lanning as a quarterback. I don't know what his value is. So he's certainly someone I'm interested in watching. He's someone who has been out of reach and gone way earlier than I am comfortable taking him in certain leagues. So he's probably a guy that I'm just going to enjoy watching if he does well, rather than having any Devy shares apart from in leagues where he just completely went undrafted, and we'll see where that lands us next year.
Yeah, so I'm just checking here. I have one share. I have one share that I took in my league that I play in with the Gaffer, that I play in with Kev, and a couple of other kind of well-known UK-based Devy degenerates. And it's the one with the big 10-round draft. So we have a 10-round Devy draft every year. I managed to pick him up in the 9th round, which just shows we're talking a 5-star QB who is completely not on people's radar. Mm-hmm. And at the 9th round, I mean, we're not huge fans of drafting Devy quarterbacks anyway, but a 5-star freshman in the 9th round, that seemed too good to be true, really. So I'll sit on that one and see how we do. How does he look? And I will review what to do with that share in a year's time.
Absolutely. Fabulous. Well, that is fortunately the end of the news section. There is loads more to talk about, but we want to get excited for college football that is coming. So we have already given you that preview of Farmageddon in week 0. There are a couple of other games that you've mentioned. There's Fresno State at Kansas. So from a Devy perspective, we're going to highlight some of the players in the games that we're interested in. So you've got Jalen Daniels and Emmanuel Henderson, the Alabama transfer, who will be playing for Kansas this year. Jalen Daniels still has eligibility somehow. He's another who's had terrible injury luck. But he's been on that Devy radar a little bit, maybe 2 seasons ago. So someone we're interested in watching. And then we've got Stanford going to Hawaii. And this is, like you say, I've got Pofele Ashlock that I want to highlight for this season going forward. One of those wide receivers that is going to be super productive in an offense, in a scheme that is going to suit him well. And we're going to see a lot of air raid football from Hawaii. But Pofele Ashlock not gone in any Devy drafts that I'm a part of. And so I've been keeping tabs on him, keeping an eye on him, and enjoying watching him play. Someone who could translate as a late riser in the Devy sphere, or someone who could contribute at the NFL level. That is about it for week 0. There are a couple of other games. None of them are particularly Devy relevant, but we will be enjoying them regardless as college football is back.
Yeah.
Into week 1, we have some heavyweight matchups. And I don't think we've ever had this many in week 1, to be perfectly honest. Since I've been watching college football, I don't think we've had this big a matchup. We've got in the preseason polls, number 1 Texas traveling to number 3 Ohio State, although arguably they should be number 2. And that is part 1 of a home and home series. So we're going to get this again next season, Ohio State and Texas matching up. So this is, a headline game. It's going to be at 5:00 UK time. So I know the US fans don't like their big noon kickoffs, but it's nice and friendly. Nice and friendly afternoon kickoff for us. And you barely need us to touch on the names that we're going to see, that we're excited to see in this game. You've got 2 new starting quarterbacks, Arch Manning and Julian Sayin. You've got superstar wide receivers in Jeremiah Smith, Khalil Lockett, DeAndre Moore, Marlon Graham, Brandon Innis, Carnell Tate. We're going to talk more tight ends here because you've got Max Clare and Jack Endries, two of the top tight ends in college. You've got Ryan Wingo, you've got Emmett Mosley, you've got running back wise, Trey Wisner, definitely maybe a bit of CJ Baxter. You've got James Peoples. This is a smorgasbord of Devy talent that we're going to get to watch in week 1.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely amazing. Just like to kind of set the scene on this game a little bit. Like, so number 1 in the preseason polls, Texas. Number 3, Ohio State.
Reigning national champions, Ohio State.
It is at the Shoe, the home of Ohio State. The number 1 team in the country, according to the polls, is going in and is actually a 2.5 point underdog, which is mad to think. Like that gives you an idea of just kind of what to expect in terms of the game you're walking into. I'm going to pick up on a couple of those names and the bits that I think are interesting because there is so much talent, so much talent. First of all, how does Archman look? Okay, that is going to be the one that everyone wants to see, stepping in for his true first test as the clear number 1 starter. He's got to protect the football against the kind of pass rusher from Ohio State. How does Ryan Wingo emerge as his number 1 guy in the passing game? That is going to be a big one for me to keep my eye on because of purely where Ryan Wingo's ADP is at the moment. And we know that ADP in Devy is a little bit kind of neither here nor there because every draft is very, very different. But when you look at some of the big Devy publications that release ADP, Ryan Wingo kind of falls into somewhere between that 110 and 201 in a lot of Devy drafts. He is been drafted like a first-round guy, yet perhaps hasn't quite shown us what that kind of elite tier above him that includes your kind of Cam Coleman's, your Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, the guys at Clemson, TJ Moore and Bryant Wesker. He hasn't quite broken out to that level. So how he emerges and if he can emerge as Archie's true number 1 guy is going to be really, really interesting to me. And then the other big one for Texas is, and again, you mentioned both backs. What does that snap share and carry share look like? Obviously, Trey Wisner has been a big riser throughout the offseason. He kind of made the most of the opportunities he got towards the back end of the season. We know Cedric Baxter as a freshman's tape. It was good. The injury was tough, but the guy looks like a machine. Like his recovery has been incredibly impressive. And can he, I suppose, what does the snap share look like early? I suppose we'll really get an idea of how serious Cedric Baxter is as a 2026 draft prospect with how long it takes him to get back into the fold. And obviously the knock-on effect then will be from my earliest drafts, kind of right around the NFL draft time, all the way to my latest ones that have finished in the last couple of weeks. I don't think I've seen a bigger value shift than Trey Wisner. And it is really interesting because when you look at guys like Todd McShay, the guys at the First Draft podcast on CBS, like they're talking about him and they've got real mixed opinions. Some of them like him, some of them don't. I think it'll be interesting to see, is he being pushed up because of opportunity or how much of it is actually tape and talent and what that kind of means. And I suppose only over the first few weeks of the season are we going to see, when we see the snap share and see how Baxter looks, what that means for both of their Devy values moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think that we would see CJ Baxter until week 5 or 6. His recovery has been incredible. If he is fit and healthy enough to take some snap shares, you know, practice reps aren't the same as game reps, and SARC will determine what Baxter can have. But Baxter at full health was the RB1 in Devy for a period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the one storyline from the Ohio State thing that I think just deserves to be brought to people's attention, and that James Peoples, because he is going to step into the lead role in that backfield or is expected to step into the lead role in that backfield. Obviously, with the departures of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins to the NFL, there is a lot of vacated targets or carries in that backfield that are available. People are very, very high on incoming freshman Bo Jackson. We also know that Anthony Rogers is there, who we don't expect to see a great amount of this year. And is it CJ Donaldson?
It is CJ Donaldson.
Who, again, I don't want to call him a jag, but this is James Peoples' opportunity to take command of that backfield. And a strong opener in this game would certainly propel his Devy stock significantly, I think. That is massively one to watch.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. If this was a more typical week one matchup for Ohio State, we'd see James Peoples probably take the first 3 or 4 series, and then you'd see a whole mix of different backs and different combinations and different play calls where lots of running backs would get a fair few yards because we'd be playing a more inferior opponent. But it'd be really interesting what happens, because James Peoples is not being drafted as a top running back prospect.
Which is wild to me.
I think he is one. I was going to say, I think he is a top running back prospect, and he's got a huge opportunity in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a player that in my drafts this season, I've ended up with a lot of shares of. Because he's maybe not the guy I'm looking to take in the first, maybe even the second round. But then, because I've kind of got my guys that I'm lining up, I know what I want to do. And then all of a sudden, I see him sat there in the third, and I think, shit, he's still there. Like, how is he still there? Because he has a skill set that will translate to the modern NFL. Like, he's in a great situation at Ohio State. We've seen backs similar to him go on and have success through playing at Ohio State. You've only got to look at J.K. Dobbins and look at Travion Henderson. Like, he's obviously, they're not carbon copies of each other, but he's of a similar skill set. And I can just, I've ended up with so much of him just because the value felt too good.
Yeah. And it's not like he's untested or a freshman either. We've seen him play. We've seen him be productive in this offense, albeit sometimes in garbage time, but not always. He had some meaningful snaps in the national championship season. So, he's definitely one to watch. And then
sorry, go on. No, I was going to say, like, we've just been absolutely blessed with maybe one of the deepest kind of influx of running back talents in recent memory. But when you look across the college landscape right now to get excited for Devy running backs, there isn't loads. And there is absolutely no reason that James Peoples cannot emerge. Like, it just blows my mind. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great news for those of you listening to us. Go and get him. If he's still available, or if someone drafted him in the 4th, 5th round, go and overpay. Give them exactly. I think it's worth it. I think you're gonna be thankful for getting that deal done now. The only other thing I wanted to say on Ohio State as we enter the season is there is a crowded wide receiver room. There's a lot of talent in there. We often speak about the year 1-0 theory, that we are kind of enlightened on, thanks to the guys at Campus Canton, and the fact that if a wide receiver doesn't hit any of these 8 kind of benchmark criteria, then they have a less than 3% chance of being productive in the NFL for fantasy. So it's a worrying statistic if you can't hit them. I am nervous. I love Quincy Porter. I'm nervous about the opportunity he's going to get to break that year 1-0 theory because of how crowded that wide receiver room is with talent and with leaders. So you think of a player like Brandon Innes, who didn't break year 1-0 either. And we've kind of referenced that plenty of times on this show. He is a captain. So he is not going to be coming off the field. He is a starter for Ohio State this year. You've got Marlon Graham, who is chomping at the bit, who did break year 1-0 theory but he is going to be chomping at the bit to get on the field as well. I'm not sure how much we're going to see Quincy Porter, and I don't necessarily see him as being a big role on special teams as a returner either. So it'll be really, he's one to monitor. He's one to maybe think, could he break the year 1-0 theory just because he doesn't get on the field at all? But then actually, is that a big enough concern as it is that he can't get onto the field?
Absolutely. Let's move on to the other huge week 1 game, because there are several big games, but there's only 2 that I think are truly colossal and proper heavyweight clashes. The other game we really want to focus on and kind of spotlight tonight is the kind of nightcap of week 1, really, for us watching it from the UK, because it's going to be an early morning kickoff for us. But the nightcap of week 1 is an SEC ACC Battle of the Tigers. All right, you've got LSU traveling to Clemson, and it's going to be a tale of 2 headline quarterbacks, 2 guys right now who are kind of tied in their Heisman odds. You can get them both at the moment at 9-1 for Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. And how they lead their offenses, these guys are buzzing names in Heisman voting, in next year's NFL draft kind of voting. Watching what these 2 do and how they lead their respective teams. Obviously, Clemson are heavily fancied this year and making a lot of noise in terms of the talent on their roster. It's going to be really, really interesting. Kind of set the scene for that one, Jack. Introduce us to some of the players to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, this could just as easily be a 1v3 matchup, couldn't it? Our expectations for these 2 schools are maybe even more so natty or bust. You know, both these schools are all in on 2025, and Texas are too. But, you know, both of them have quarterbacks coming back because they openly have said they want to go and win a national championship with their school. Both of them could have gone to the NFL last season. And, you know, as you'll have seen, if you watched Any Given Saturday, Garrett Nussmeier really contemplated that decision. I think he's made the right one to come back to school. I think he's got a bit more to show, a bit more to learn as a quarterback. But as a pocket passer, boy, you don't get much more talent, do you? He has all the tools to be an excellent NFL pocket passer, and he's got the offensive line to give him time to do that. Now, he's going up against a Clemson defensive front that are going to give that offensive line an absolute battering. It's just whether they can stand up to it. What we're not going to see is Nussmeier escaping the pocket and improvising on the run. That's what we're not going to see. So if that pocket doesn't hold up, LSU are in a little bit of trouble, but we trust that they will. And that is really exciting for players like the 2 Andersons, Aaron Anderson and Nick Anderson, 2 pretty speedy deep threats who, you know, Nick Anderson's come over from Oklahoma, a guy that you and I kind of disagree on as a prospect. I know you are higher on him than I am. I think he is maybe too slight and too one-dimensional to be, or for me to risk too much Devy capital on him. But I'll let you speak about him in a minute. You've got Barrion Brown, who's transferred in as well, and you've got Trudez Green, the tight end. We are talking about too many tight ends today, Phil.
It feels a little bit icky, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. But Trudez Green could be the leading receiver for this team. He's not a true tight end. He is a receiver that is big and so secure with his hands. I think he's a real threat in the short intermediary and in some longer developing routes. If he can show us a bit more of that development of running routes, I think he's going to be given the opportunity to take them on. So really excited for the LSU offense. You've then got on the other side of the ball the aforementioned Cade Klubnik, who his redemption arc is complete. Could it go beyond even what we needed him to show us this season? Potentially. Clemson look hot. their wide receivers, Tyler Brown, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, Antonio Williams. What a receiving core. That is such a variety of receivers with such different skill sets, but all of them have NFL skill sets. I think Antonio Williams is going to be a huge red zone threat this season. Big-bodied receiver, very strong, very athletic. You've got TJ Moore, who we absolutely love, who's a bit more of a, can do everything on the field. And Bryant Wesco is the speed demon, really, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you've set the scene amazingly. Like, for me, some of the key stories that I would want to pick out on this one. Caden Durham in the backfield at LSU. Mm-hmm. He is now clearly their running back one. He was so dynamic as a freshman that he stepped in and at times looked unplayable. It was only because LSU's offense seemed so woefully imbalanced that he wasn't allowed to come to the fore. And you really hope that the guys in charge of LSU's offense, kind of Brian Kelly and Kurt, like you want to see them play to their strengths this year. And Caden Durham is a key strength and needs to be utilized in a way that allows him to showcase his talent. It's going to be an interesting matchup because Clemson's disciplined front will be absolutely gunning for him. But yeah, I can't wait to see what he can do. He's another one where a big game in this spotlight against this team could be huge for a guy we know is talented. But you want to see these guys like lift off and you want to see stock change. And if he struggles, that to me against Clemson's defensive line wouldn't necessarily indicate a stock down. However, it would be very, very easy for him to have a good day. And that would definitely be a stock up because that defensive front is major. You mentioned Nick Anderson. You're right. I am a little bit higher on him than you are. I just think like injury puts these guys out of sight, out of mind. And, he didn't contribute at all at Oklahoma last year. But the 10 touchdowns he recorded as a true freshman, when you go back and watch the tape, they were done it in a variety of ways. He plays and he uses his body. He needs to fill out and add a little bit of mass to play the way I think he wants to play and can be most effective. But he has got downfield speed, and that kind of size speed combo could it be for me. What's really interesting about this one is, will he emerge as the primary deep player threat in this offense? Because it could be Barry and Brown. It could be Aaron Anderson. It could well be Nick Anderson. And I think Nick Anderson, out of those three, for me, is still the one with the most Devy upside if he gets it right. So I am really interested to see what he does there. You mentioned TJ Moore. We love him. Will this be the breakout year? I think for me, we've seen flashes of what he can do. What we want to see now is what's his chemistry with Cade Klubnik like? And will he be the guy that Klubnik uses in those clutch moments? Now, Cade Klubnik is blessed, like you've already mentioned, to have Antonio Williams, to have Tyler Brown, who has just got that dreamy kind of small, kind of statured, kind of slot profile that can be so effective. You've got Antonio Williams, who can do a little bit of everything. You've got the absolute burner in Bryant Wesco. TJ Moore, like you're right. He's that kind of jack of all trades. Like he can do a little bit of everything. What I really want to see for his Devy stock to kind of ascend and for him to be spoken about, I kind of feel like at the moment he's like that kind of half a tier below Cam Coleman. Like, but he has got the talent to be right there with him. And what will come from that is the opportunity, if he's the guy that is trusted in the big moments when Cade Klubnik needs that guy to be open, to make that play, is it TJ Moore that he looks at? That will be absolutely massive for his Devy stocks. We'll move ahead this year. And then Gideon Davison. We've spoken about Caden Durham. In the other backfield, you've got Gideon Davison, true freshman, looks set to lead that backfield. He's not got a great deal of kind of competition. He's drawn kind of rave reviews from Dabo Swinney all kind of off-season. he can make an instant impact. And he's a guy who I don't think is ever going to be cheaper than he is today.
Yeah, that's fair. He is at his cheapest because he is kind of being cast aside, if we're perfectly honest, in this recruiting class. The running backs, there are quite a myriad of top running backs, and Gideon Davidson seems to be the fourth or fifth choice for most people. I agree. This is the cheapest he's going to be. I don't necessarily think that he's going to lead that running back room this year. I think the converted wide receiver, Adam Randall, he just won't go away. I don't think he's going to be that good. I think Adam Randall is too tall and not shifty enough as a running back, but I think he will be productive enough and he'll do the job well enough, and he knows the scheme really well. I think they just put too much work in to dismiss Adam Randall, and as much as it might be one of those ones that really frustrates us in year one, and Gideon Davidson sees a few touches, maybe a bit like Caden Durham last year. We see some flashes, but we just don't see enough of him for a different reason, because I think Clemson are going to be able to run the ball, unlike LSU last year. But I definitely think it's someone worth going out and getting. I think his price may stay cheap this season, but that's a gamble. So, if you're willing to gamble it like I am, then you might get him slightly cheaper, but you equally might miss out. So go get him now if you're all bought in, like Phil is.
That's it. Jack, I mean, look, we have got so many games to get into. Let's rapid fire. Let's take a game each. Let's kind of put the names out there. And then once we've back and forth and gone through the games, let's pick a couple of guys each to talk about. Okay. So if I go first, Notre Dame and Miami, you've got Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, Jaden Greathouse, the tight end, Eli Raridon. I've butchered that name, but hey. You've also got transfer quarterback Carson Beck, Jordan Lyle and Mark Fletcher, the running back duo, and Jojo Trader, Malachi Turney, Josh Moore, and then freshman Elijah Lofton. Like, there is so much talent on both kind of sides in that game. Brilliant. Go on, Jack. Next game.
Yeah, I am super excited for Auburn at Baylor. I think from a football point of view, this is really interesting to see how both of these programs shape up. Both of them are getting hype going into the 2025 season to be much better than last season. And we've got some, obviously star names from a Devy perspective, especially on the Auburn side. So you've got once top quarterback recruit Jackson Arnold, but I'm still really interested in how he gets on. You've got Cam Coleman, obviously. You've got Eric Singleton transferring from Georgia Tech, Malcolm Simmons, who really carved a rollout and has been cleared of certain charges, so he will be free to play, which is obviously a big deal for him, but we won't comment too much on that scenario because we don't know enough. But on the Baylor side, you've also got sneaky NFL upside quarterback in Sawyer Robertson. You've got college superstar running back Bryson Washington. Whether he can be a Devy asset is one really to pay attention to, and senior wide receiver Josh Cameron. I think that trio on offense are going to be excellent in 2025. So let's see how those three can elevate their Devy stock. And against Auburn, that's a great test.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got Georgia Tech at Colorado. The dynamic duo at Georgia Tech this year, now Eric Singleton transferred out, will be Haynes King and Jamal Haynes. Then you've got the interesting kind of QB battle on the other side. Right now, Colorado still haven't named a week one starter. Is it going to be Caden Salter, or is it going to be incoming freshman and kind of five-star recruit Julian Lewis? And then also, it'll be really interesting to see what their wide receiver room looks like with the absence of Jimmy Horn, LeJohntay Wester, and of course Travis Hunter. I'm calling this We Are the Millers. You've got Draylon Miller and Amarion Miller, who are both incredibly talented and will be looking to kind of break out and may well find themselves. They're definitely named on C2C and CFF radars, but before long, either of them have got the potential to definitely be on Devy radar. So that's going to be an interesting watch as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both of them have super high ceilings, as like they could both be day one NFL wide receivers. That is how high they could get. Whether they'll get there, I don't know. We'll see what the system looks like. We'll see what what the quarterback situation is now that Shedeur Sanders is not there. I don't know what the scheme's going to look like. I don't know who's going to be throwing the ball. I don't know how much they're going to be throwing the ball. Colorado certainly didn't show us that they could run it very well last year, but was that just so that Shedeur Sanders had some more highlights? Who knows? Other games to look for. I'm excited for the final game of the weekend, which is TCU at North Carolina. Again, I've got Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover are my two super sneaky Devy quarterback prospects that I'm keeping eyes on. I'm not drafting them because it's too early and it's too volatile a position, but I'm really interested in how Josh Hoover gets on. I think he's got NFL upside in a really fun offense under a really fun coordinator. His wide receiver one is Eric McAllister, who's going to be super productive. He's going to be peppered with targets this year, I think, because again, TCU are another side that have really struggled to run the ball in the last couple of years. They don't really look interested in doing so. So Eric McAllister is a name to look out for, and Kamorian Pimpleton is their tight end come wide receiver. So we'll see how that gets on. And then at North Carolina, it's two new faces, two guys that are more Devy prospects than really productive players this year, maybe. We don't know what North Carolina are going to look like under Bill Belichick or his girlfriend's guidance. So, but Bryce Baker, freshman quarterback, really excited for what he looks like. He's probably not going to play at all this year, but someone who will is Devion Gause. I'm really high on Devion Gause. I think he's got the talent to take over that running back room and make it his own. So we will see what happens there.
Yeah. Last one for me. I wouldn't be doing my bit if I didn't talk Alabama. Obviously, Alabama and Florida State week one. Ty Simpson has been named the starting quarterback at Alabama, former 5-star recruit. It's his time to shine now and lead that offense. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what that looks like. I think a lot more kind of play action than we saw last year. He is much more of a genuine threat with his arm than Jalen Milroe was. Yet he's still got those kind of wheels to kind of roll out the pocket and extend plays with his legs as well. Obviously, what that does do is push Keelan Russell down the board a little bit in terms of relevance for right now. But we know the talent is real for him, and it won't hurt him to sit at all. Of course, we're desperate to see what Ryan Williams looks like in year two. He's not 17 anymore. He's 18 now. Look forward to hearing that one over and over again. What will the running back room look like? We already touched on that earlier with Jam Miller out. Who takes the lion's share of the carries in that backfield? You've got freshman Ackland Deer, who I don't think will get a great deal of look in. I think it'll be between Daniel Hill and Richard Young. Look out, like I said earlier, for the name Daniel Hill. The rest of the wide receiver room, Jeremy Bernard, my guy, let's see at Brooks. If you've not seen the piece I've written, go to my X page and check out my little deep dive on him. He is my absolute Devy darling as a sleeper at the moment. Then you've got transfer Isaiah Horton from Miami. On the other side, you've got Thomas Castellanos. How will he look after the kind of absolute fire he spit Alabama's way in the offseason? Freshman running back Usman Cromer, who has been getting absolute rave reviews. Apparently, he looks like a grown man in that backfield already. Senior running back, former Alabama running back Roydell Williams. And then Gavin Sawchuk as well. So there's an awful lot of stuff going on in all these games. Jack, I'm just buzzing. I am so excited. Like this weekend, week 0 can't come soon enough. By the time we're back talking to these guys, we're going to have had week 0 and week 1 in the books. We will have actual football to talk about. And all these names we've mentioned tonight, we can talk who's done well, who hasn't. And we'll be looking at week 2. It's just so exciting, man.
Yeah, I cannot wait. We're going to have reviews as well as previews, and that is absolutely brilliant. Everybody enjoy and feast on the college football that is coming your way over the next 2 weeks. we will be active on X, so you'll be able to kind of interact with us on there, have a look at the content we're pumping out, interact with us on game day, give us your thoughts on the games you're excited for, the players you're excited to see, who have we missed out on.
Who didn't we mention that you are looking forward to? Please hit us up and tell us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So make sure that you are following us on X. You can do that at Wildcard Devy. And on YouTube, we are at Fantasy Wildcard. And that is where you can find the rest of the Wildcard family stuff on X as well. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace.